Hey everybody, I'm David. This is High Shelf Gaming, and today, World Building with Legend Keeper, our monthly installment of world building topics with the four of us. We're like, it's a pattern now. It's a thing that we do.
It exists.
Yes, exactly. I'm gonna start over here. Braden, maker of Legend Keeper, dude, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the thing. I'm so pumped that we get to have you back, talking all about world building and how we use your product to do that, which is phenomenal.
I'm crazy pumped to be here.
And I'm loving the blazer sitch, man. I'm infinitely jealous of your business there.
Thank you. My parents actually gave me this blazer for Christmas once, and they're like, if you don't wear this on your live stream tonight, you are a coward. So I was like, you're on, parents.
Mom,
I
Dad, he
accept
did
your
all right.
challenge.
Yeah, he did okay. All right. That is awesome. That is so good. And then over here next to me is Anto from Icarus Games. Dude, welcome back, man.
Greetings, people of the internet. How are we all?
Yeah, we're doing well, doing well. And all the way over here, Patrick, good buddy of ours from way back in the day. Patrick over at Two Brothers Gaming with your Batman shirt.
It's Santa.
Oh, it's
It's
Batman.
Santa.
Oh, there's Santa on there. Oh, I've seen it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Batman saving the day, saving Christmas.
That's
So,
right. That's right. The Christmas comic special.
That's right.
I'm pretty sure that's canon. I'm pretty sure that is canon that Batman
Yeah.
helped deliver presents one year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This was way before year one and all that other stuff when it got like super dark. Oh man. Um,
Yeah. You're the new 52, all the reboots. Yeah.
right. Exactly. Well, cool. Everybody, we have tons of links down in the chat for you. This is, linking to all of our various shows and programs and all that kind of stuff. And we'll maybe, like, at the end, take a little minute to talk about each of our projects that we're all doing. I do have one quick little, what's up, Two Brothers Gaming? I have one quick little, like, thing to sneak in here. This weekend, starting tomorrow, HSG is doing a huge charity event. Anto is providing some giveaway stuff. We got a lot of giveaways. It's 12 days of actual plays. We're going to be playing 12 games live starting nowish, most evenings until the 2nd. We're going to skip actual holidays, but we're going to stream games every night, and we're going to try and raise money for the Trevor Project, which is a really cool charity in the U.S. Trevor Project tries to save the lives of LGBTQ folk who are contemplating suicide. So it's a suicide prevention line. Very important to me. I have nearly lost people. I have lost people who are in the LGBTQ scene to suicide. So this is something that's super important to me, and I'm so glad that we have such wonderful people coming out to run games and support us to try and raise funds for this opportunity. So that all starts tomorrow night. You can donate like now. Those get you that gets you into like getting, physical prizes, and then all the virtual prizes we give away on stream. And if you donate $10, I'll give you a copy of Legend Keeper. Uh, so if you pony up a little bit, you get a little bit back. So we're really excited for that whole opportunity, and that's my little soapbox right here. So thank you all.
Yeah.
For giving me
That's
that
great
time.
thing. Great thing you're doing. No, it's great. It's fantastic. Great thing you're doing. So
Yeah.
best of luck with it.
Thank you. Yeah, and I have Katrina to thank. She's our mod in the chat today. Katrina is logisticizing the hell out of that thing, getting all of our little kittens in the right boxes, because she's herding cats at this point with 9 GMs and
Oof.
12 times 4 players. Like a lot of players. So it's been good. So yeah, those are all my announcements. Those are all the things that we're working on. Braden, I want to pass it over to you to do our world building chapter for the day.
Let's do it. So this evening, we will be talking about geography and its impact on our world building and our storytelling and our character development and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So I wanted to start us off by posing a question to you guys. And so that question is, what is a way, or how has geography impacted your storytelling, right? And so you can answer with a specific instance or maybe like your general strategy, but just to kind of kick us off, what influence does geography have on you as a game master / storyteller?
How about Anto? You start. I think I start a lot of these. I want to hear what
Yeah.
you have to say first.
That's fine. I've got two kind of approaches to this. So, in terms of how geography impacts me, I tend to build all my maps for my regions before I start going in there and getting into all the noodly details. So I often find myself impacted by the geography of things, where the mountains are, where the rivers are, all that kind of stuff. And I usually approach it from the point of view of, I'm going to make this map and I'm not going to prescribe any kind of story to the land until the land exists. And then once I've made it, I kind of see what exists on the map and let that inform me of decisions. So if there's a big mountain range, I think, well, what kind of resources are going to be there? And then that builds into what kind of wealth is there going to be there from those resources, and on it goes. And then on the other side of things, I have the kind of stories of my games impact the geography itself. So the story I always tell is the time my players blew up the country they were adventuring in and turned it into just a big nebulous collection of islands instead of one big part of a continent, because they blew it up.
Wow. Yeah, from continent to archipelago in like
Yeah.
a story session. That's pretty great. That's pretty great. Yeah, I think for me, I really see geography as informing me of like what kinds of people live there. So like I went and invented a walled city for my dystopian game, and I was like, okay, so a walled city, how do they handle trash? And I decided that, well, this walled city just has a big trash pile right outside the wall because it's not inside the wall. What do we care? And then who lives there, right? And who deals with that kind of stuff. And then why is the wall the shape that it is? I had to use some rivers to justify some things and some other land masses to help justify some things. So for me, it was about figuring out, okay, based on the terrain in front of me, how would they have reasonably built up defenses? And then how would that effort been, of course, influenced by the land, but then what impact would that have had back on the geography and then on the people who would live in various areas, folks that are, way outside the wall, folks that are just inside, and all that kind of stuff, all being informed by where two rivers forked, And so that has been my thing, kind of drawing a little bit of inspiration from like Paris, France, how there's like that segment in the center. It's all like defensible because, hey, well, we got this little island in the middle. We can build up some walls. And it's like, that sounds tough. That sounds awful. Let's do that. And so like that has been probably my most recent example where I looked at the geography of an area and said, okay, what kind of stories can I tell based on just the natural formation that was there? And it was great. My players ended up hating everything about the place. So I think that was my goal was achieved. I didn't want them to like that city, and they didn't.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think so. I think I have like two approaches as well. So one of them is letting. I think what Anto is kind of describing, letting the geography help frame the story. So in the fantasy setting that I'm working on, there's some highlands that border two countries, and I basically have said, hey, those are kind of just, they're really rough. People don't like to pass through them, and so for people to get into the main country, they have to go through this other country. So what does that mean? That the way civilizations clash in that one country, it becomes sort of like this, route, into the other one, but it creates a lot of tension and challenges and turmoil and that kind of stuff within that. And there's some people operating crusades and that kind of stuff, pushing people, refugees, into kind of funneling them into this area because of those highlands and the challenges associated with that. And then the other way is when I think about my Cyberpunk story, which I kind of set in Miami. I knew I wanted Miami flooded, right? I kind of like, hey, I want global warming. I want, it's way worse than what probably people even predicted, and Miami's pretty much flooded. But you've got all of these skyscrapers, so all the rich people fled, and of course you've got all the punks and all the desperate who have moved into the upper buildings of these skyscrapers, sort of like if Venice were cyberpunk, and continuing flooding and that kind of stuff. So you have sort of this anarchist organization within old Miami, but I knew that I wanted it to be flooded. And then I kind of said, well, why? What happens when you flood it, and who kind of lives there? And, what does it mean for police to like go there? Like, it's bad news, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, it definitely has, if you definitely have that kind of impact and kind of let it be. Or you go with the Star Wars approach where the planet's the entire, it's one climate, no change, it's the same temperature no matter what, and it's all the same. So
yeah, it's really interesting. It's something I've been thinking about lately, because I was playing Stellaris for a little bit. Stellaris, for anyone unfamiliar, is a 4X grand strategy game set in space. It's like your own space opera or whatever. And I've always found it interesting that in sci-fi, particularly, planets tend to become just entire biomes, right? Like, it's kind of a trope of like, oh, lava planet, ice planet,
right,
earth planet, water planet, right? Whereas, obviously Earth is made up of, hundreds and hundreds of different biomes. I think it's interesting, the kind of the cognitive shortcuts we take when trying to deal with scale, right? Like,
yeah,
it's probably unreasonable for a human to comprehend the geography of, 100 different planets. But if you just turn them into biomes, now you've changed the problem into, well, now I just have to understand Earth, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Compresses everything down.
Various aspects of Earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
if you want a new biome, you go to a new planet. So
yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. There's not like an icy lava-y planet. It's always one or the other, and they're usually kind of far apart.
Yeah.
So I don't want to overlap too much with the stream we did about generation, but I am curious, and this is me kind of putting on my not so covert LegendKeeper focus group hat, but like, I'm curious as to what kind of problems you've encountered when it comes to reasoning about geography, and like, if you had a magic wand that could make, and it doesn't have to be software, right? It can be anything. If you had a magic wand to help you, explore the geography of your world, right, or tell stories based around it, kind of what's like the ideal, tool. Like, what in your dreams would you use to craft geographies and stories around them?
So one of the things that I find very interesting, and Patrick, you're bringing this up with your Miami story of like oceans rising immediately changes the geography. Like even if you like a foot immediately changes Miami, because Miami's like on ocean level, right? It's like you get a big wave and there goes neighborhoods, right? I mean, it's bad.
Yep.
And so that kind of stuff I think is very interesting. Like, what does it mean when an area is irrevocably changed by some geological event? A tremor shakes open a big chasm in the ground, or sinkholes, or just a freaking asteroid comes down and makes a big hole in the ground, or flooding, right? Like, that kind of change has a huge impact on a culture, makes a bunch of different changes, and tracking that I think is interesting. So like in my own game that I always go back to, like, there's this moment where everything was going up and then there was this geographic change, which was precipitated by a nuke going off that changed everything, right? And sent us all back into the Dark Ages effectively, and then we claw our way back from that. And that is one of those things where it's like tracking that on my world, where I say, here's where it was pre-Cataclysm.
Yeah.
Cataclysm happens. What is that? Describe that in some way, right? And then post-Cataclysm, where my game is happening. I still need pre-Cataclysm because I need to know where all the artifacts are. I need to know what the assumptions were of the old world and that kind of thing. But then I really want to know the details of post-Cataclysm, and it's, you know, and how the new geography, how the new mechanics of the world have impacted, you know, whatever creatures were there in the first place.
In terms of software, thinking of how I would use that or want to see that implemented in software, for me, it would all come down to kind of the map, the atlas, and having those, having layers to be able to say, right, I've got my world in the present, but now I need to be able to toggle on a layer that is the same map, but 1,000 years ago, so I can see overlaid how things have changed. And I can go, right, okay, 1,000 years ago, this was the capital of this country, but now that's in the ocean. So I can have an awesome adventure under the sea where they find a buried city under the sea, and that'll be really cool. And being able to directly see the comparison between two states of being.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go a little bit different because so when I was writing my
Patrick is gone
today, and I would love to have this. I would love to have this for the fantasy set, or for a fantasy setting. Is I use Google Maps, the 3D, and I would drive Chicago and say, okay, so how would I'm going to navigate. Oh, I'm going to turn here, and I would see the buildings. I would, I had a sense of place, even though I was not in Chicago at the time. And obviously, being in Chicago helped that. But I would really love to be able to fly into a geography. Like, right. Oh, I can imagine what the Highlands are, but wow, wouldn't it be cool to be able to walk through them and sort of imagine those kinds of worlds and kind of actually kind of bring the imagination to life and kind of encounter those in sort of that reality. So you asked me to dream big. That's what I would be like. Yeah, I want to walk my Highlands. I want to walk along that river that's there.
No, I really like that. One of the things that Justin and I talk about a lot. Justin is the one of the co-founders of LegendKeeper. We talk about 3D so much, and if you've used LegendKeeper, you know LegendKeeper doesn't have any 3D in it.
Sure.
But we talk about it a lot, and our long-term plans involve 3D a lot. And I think the biggest challenges that come with it, right, is like, for example, you're describing, moving around in Google Maps and seeing 3D, and the display is actually not the terribly hard part of that, because if you've got the data to display, there are plenty of there's plenty of stuff out there that will help you render things, right?
Right.
It's how do you help users get data for a place that doesn't exist, right? And I think that's kind of like that is LegendKeeper's like core thesis, right? It's like we have all of these tools for the real world. How do you make them work for fake ones, or sub-worlds, worlds within worlds? And so one of the things Justin and I talk about a lot is how is there a way to take commonly available formats, and by that I mean you have a map file here, like we're looking at a map of Miami, right?
Right.
Is there a way to present a user with an experience where they can say, just talking at the bare minimum, like this place is this high from sea level, this place is this high from sea level, and having a system be smart enough to kind of remember that and use it in some way, right? One of the examples Justin showed me recently, sneak peek, is he he took that really pretty fantasy map that LegendKeeper has, the kind of isometric view, and he went and he added a height map to like everything in the in the map, and then put it in a terrain viewer. And obviously it wasn't perfect, right? Like adding 3D to a 2D image is never gonna be like a 1-to-1 thing, but like it looked super cool. Like the mountains were kind of raised off the screen, and the sea was like a little lower and had like a sheen to it. Like the stuff he was doing was very cool. And this is all very vague, but we really are looking into, you know, the far future when it comes to LegendKeeper. Like what are cool ways to bring a world to life like that?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Like, I would love to have the ability to say, like, from this vantage point on the world, can they see that big mountain over there?
Mm.
You know, like that is kind of neat, right? Because that's one of those ways where, like, yeah, head towards the mountain until you get to this thing, and then, you know, like that's a cultural thing, right? That informs the kind of language that the people in that town are going to talk about. Because if they can see the volcano, they're going to reference a lot of their landmarks on, you know, where it is in relation to the volcano. Whereas if it's just over the horizon, then it's like a, you know, then they don't talk about it. They talk about something else, right? So like, what's the geography you can see from that town or that city? Like that's meaningful, right? I mean, that's something that I could use in a world to say that, this is over here. It's close enough they can see it. And when I'm standing here in the town, I can tell exactly how much of it they see and how important it would be to them, you know?
I mean, I think anyone that's played like a survival style online multiplayer video game, those kind of games that don't really have names on the maps for anything, you just spawn in on the map and your friends spawn somewhere else. You have to use the landmarks around you, and you say, right, can you see the mountain that looks like a shoe? Yeah, right. I can. Okay, we'll meet there. And that kind of information is really beneficial to have to communicate things between people and cultures, to be able to say we have common reference points.
Yeah. And I think there's another layer to this. Oh, sorry, Patrick, go ahead. I was about to completely change something on you, so go ahead.
Well, I'll only add, I think, because it reminds me, so there's a game called Mutant Year Zero, right? And by Free League, where it's basically you go out and explore this wasteland, right? That's been, you know, basically nuked and radiation. And the game itself, the writers encourage you to use like your hometown or an area that you're familiar with. And it would be really cool to be able to like not tell your players, hey, I'm basing this out of Indianapolis. We're all in Indianapolis and we're playing. I'm not going to tell you this, but I have a map and I have visuals that have landmarks that if you are able to kind of picture it, you would enable to surprise them. Like, oh wait,
that would be really cool.
Holy crap, I recognize it. I'm here, you know. So
you blew it up.
Yeah. So I pulled up another Free League game that we ran, Tales from the Loop. Katrina ran that. She's in the chat again. She ran this game, Tales from the Loop, also from Free League. And again, in that game, they encourage you, grab your hometown, grab the place you know, right? And what's cool about that kind of stuff is like the Google Map stuff exists, therefore the topographical stuff exists.
Yeah.
You know, like I as the GM could feed LegendKeeper like accurate topography. Or, dude, I could tell you, hey, LegendKeeper, I need this Latin longitude corner to that Latin longitude corner. Give me that map in your thing. And like,
that would be super useful.
I think that very much kind of bypasses LegendKeeper's like core issue, right? Like if you are doing something that takes place in the modern world, everything is kind of already there, right?
Right.
And so you could just say, "Hey, LegendKeeper, you know, instead of uploading a map, I would like to use the world map, please." And it just brings that up. And there's no reason why LegendKeeper couldn't do that.
Yeah, and I think there's some map makers out there that allow you to mimic the Google Map stuff
style.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I could almost see like could I use somebody else's generator, and then I know that the output of this LegendKeeper could absorb, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't
Mhm.
necessarily have to use a tool you make, but if you tell me what tool to use, I'll go off and do it. Like I'll build that mountain range and I'll do the things that I want done. And then, if you're like, well, I don't, David, you need to go and play, I don't know, some game that lets you change the topography of stuff, then I'll do it. Whatever you need me to do.
Yeah.
The thing I was going to add to all this is, so the surface is super important to me, right? Like I always got to know what's going on the surface, but I also always want to know the subterranean situation. Like when I played D&D, I am fascinated by the Underdark.
Yeah.
Where are the Underdark access points in this city? Because there's going to be one, right? Where do they go to, right? And in modern world stuff, like where's the abandoned train station or subway system? What is the active use subway system? Where do those two things intersect? Because wherever they intersect, I got bad guys there.
Yeah.
I got something interesting there. And
Yeah.
so like the subterranean bit is also part of all of that to me. Like where's the cave? Is there a cave system? Is there some big like undermined thing under like a mine that dug up under the city over here? And like, what do they got buried in there? Like that stuff is, there's story there, right? I mean, freaking dungeon is in
Yeah.
the name Dungeons and Dragons, so like the underbelly stuff is also keen, right? And so like I think that something that allows me to say, hey, this like on the overall map, here's my surface map, and then I get a little ghosty of what the subterranean picture is like. Oops, sorry. And then if I want to just see subterranean, I click and boom, there's the subterranean, right?
Yeah.
But to be
Having
able to
kind of
Okay.
defined layers and then being able to change the opacity of them
right,
as you need.
because how genius do you look when you're the GM? Is like, no, you guys don't understand this topographical map of the city. If you look at that and then you look at this dungeon, oh, the dungeon ends right underneath the chapel.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that
Being able to
interesting?
pull up the
Okay.
multiple layers. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Braden. So you have time to do this. You have some time to do this. So Twilight 2000's coming out with a new edition by Freelink. And my brother and I are huge fans of that game, and we're going to be picking it up. And it takes place in Poland. And there is a salt mine in Poland that's famous. Like it's like an insane dungeon, like multiple levels, deep, dark, closed in. I want to put them into there. So if you can build this, like I can put the map of Poland in, and I can put that salt mine right there, and like you have a few months, you can do it, right?
Well, yeah. So honestly, one of the things I'm interested in is, so right now the way LegendKeeper handles maps is pretty rudimentary. It will take an image that you give it, right? It'll slice it up into little bitty pieces so it can kind of performantly render them, so it doesn't have to render parts of the map that aren't on the screen. That's why the scrolling is like so smooth. But it's a single layer and it's just a rectangle, right? One of the things I'm really interested in is sub maps and map projections where, maybe LegendKeeper knows that this one particular map is like this super map that encompasses everything, right? And instead of attaching a map to an article, you say, actually, you draw a rectangle on the map and say, this map layer, stick it in this rectangle I just drew on this big map, right?
Oh yeah.
And so you even have, and I've actually prototyped this where you're not even clicking between maps anymore, right? It just sort of, you zoom and then suddenly that new map has appeared. Now the challenge there is not so much technical, right? Because we've prototyped this and it works great. It's helping users create those transitions that don't look like total garbage. Because what happens is it's really hard to make it look super seamless.
Right. I would sit there and I would futz with that because wherever the seam is would drive me batty. Absolutely.
Exactly. And so the hard part is, okay, how do I help people get it to the level of detail that like a craftsperson is gonna wanna use with this?
Folks, I have a perfect example of this crap. Where's my thing? Look at this. This is the old Cyberpunk 2020 map of America where like I think this is whatever, Little Rock, Arkansas. Arkansas is all it's been impacted by a bioplague. Nobody can live here, right? And that's accurate. But you can see the seams. You can see the
Yeah.
seams, and they drive me insane. And there's nothing I can do about them. So yeah, Braden, you're absolutely right. The seam management is a problem, and I did exactly that.
Oh yeah, I've never seen the tile seams that bad. So
That's me.
one of the things LegendKeeper does. Oh wait, that's you. Like you stitch those together.
I did that. Yeah. So each
interesting.
each of these blocks is one. This map was a big fold out thing in the
I
book.
see. Gotcha.
Somebody took the fold out thing, cut it, had high res scans of each panel, put that online, and I was like, yoink, Photoshop. It was this gigantic file, right? And I was like, I don't care. I need the whole thing, even though my entire game is just in California. I gotta know it all.
Yeah, I got confused because underneath the hood, if you look super duper close, you can actually find where LegendKeeper is binding some seams together too.
Ooh, okay, cool. Good to know. Good to know.
It's worse on like lower resolution maps where you can see like the pixels really like misaligning. But
so that's
anyway,
funny.
there's
That's
a
funny.
technical bug.
That's funny. Yeah, no, this
LegendKeeper
is a David bug. I made this. not a you thing. And
then kind of on the topic of layers too. Layers are like a no-brainer, right? And we've been talking about layers in LegendKeeper for like 6 months, and it still doesn't have them, and that's mainly because the core of LegendKeeper is still, I'm still working on it, right? And kind of one of the things that's going on right now is if you haven't been following the Patreon or like news, I'm revamping the data core of LegendKeeper for a couple of reasons. One, it's just a little hard to work with, but two, I need sharing to be easier than it would be in the current system, and I need offline to be easier than it would be in the current system. And I found a solution, constructed a solution that kind of has an answer to both of those. And so I'm essentially rebuilding LegendKeeper's core with sharing and offline support kind of at the top of the priority list, because that helps me with a lot of problems.
Wow.
And so the staging build of LegendKeeper actually works offline completely, like the wiki and then parts of the working offline today.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Braden, you broke up there. Did you break up for anybody else? Is it just me?
Kind of the atlas represents data.
Okay.
What happened?
I'm sorry, you broke up there for a little bit. You were talking about the atlas representing data, but there was a piece missing right before that.
Oh, I was just saying, I mentioned this because the way the new data architecture represents a maps is layer based, and so I'm already setting up the scaffolding for a map not just being one image, right? But a map is ultimately going to be this logical grouping of images and pins and props and objects and like kind of a rich boundaries and polygons, like a kind of a rich Photoshop-y style sort of situation. So you can imagine that sidebar that we're looking at right now.
Right.
Instead of just being a flat list of pins, you have layers and visibility controls and right click, add fog of war. Who can see this fog of war? Well, players do, and all that kind of stuff.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. And one thing to note here, this is something that I noticed, Braden. I don't know if I'm sure that when you think about stitching things together, see the color balance issues here, where like one panel is a lot lighter than the other. As a maker, I think, I need my background to be this kind of off-whitey color for my map or whatever. And then later on, I might go and pick a slightly different off-white color because I'm not because some people who make stuff aren't the sort to write down the hex code for the colors they use, right? So they just pick, and then they put these two together and like, oh yeah, whoops, So like I could definitely see, like the whole stitching things together, very very interesting, and then like layering also becomes a thing, because like what if like I'm just in love with the color brown and like I use brown soil, and then like my dungeon is brown, and then like if I layer those things and I can kind of sort of see the two of them, do they just invisibly look like one another, right? Or do you put some sort of like outline around some, like that would be kind of weird. But yeah, like what would the color impact be to layering and that kind of thing. Like I could see a lot of questions around that.
Yeah, absolutely. At the very least, being able to just control what your map background looks like, right? That would probably go a long way of like just saying, because right now it's like either a black or a white grid.
Mhm.
And so just being able to say, I actually have another texture I'd like to show here, or I just want this to be solid dark green, right?
Yeah, if I could upload
that's something that's like really simple that I think would probably give you a lot more options.
Yeah, if I could upload to you a transparent PNG with all the lines and stuff I care about,
Mm-hmm.
and then that underneath that I want the background to be something else, like that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things I just want the lines of, right? Like we get back into the whole territory discussion and, who owns this kingdom or those sorts of layers. All of a sudden, I'm just delivering you an image with lines on it, no background information. And now,
we kind of get back to that interesting user data input problem of like, so what you're talking about is having the lines, right?
Right.
What would be even better, right, is if you were able to give me the data that defines the lines, right?
Oh wow.
And so you've made, and this is what
so I tell you,
normal,
like, here are roads, here are buildings, here are canals.
Exactly. And rather than giving LegendKeeper a raster image, you're giving LegendKeeper data, and then it uses a rendering engine to say, okay, here's what it looks like. And you can like change the styles and stuff. Again, the challenge becomes, how does a common, an everyday user gracefully get a hold of or create that data for a fantasy setting?
Right.
And so that's another thing we want to look at. Is like, there are a lot of solutions in the real world, right? There, geoinformation sciences is a field of study that is dedicated to like modeling the world with that kind of data. And so all the tools are kind of hard coded to be like, Mercator projection, and this is Delaware, right? But like, how do you say, I want to create, I want to represent the roads of, I don't know, a fantasy setting, the roads of Middle Earth, but in GeoJSON format, right? Like, that kind of stuff would be killer, because then LegendKeeper could interpret that and give you tons of ways to interact with it.
Right, but then you're expecting a lot of capabilities on the creator, right?
Right, and that's the hard part, is how do you wrap a user experience where, okay, so just to go sky's the limit, right? Like, okay, a user is looking at their newfangled Atlas 3.0, and they've got a toolbox and there's a road drawer, right? And they're just like drawing curves and stuff. Even that is like sometimes a little complicated. But then saving that and telling LegendKeeper these are roads.
Right.
Yeah.
There's another value to that, is around like I could give you all the labels, and then you could vectorize all of them, right? So now the size of the thing doesn't matter, because you can just redraw it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Braden, so a lot of the modern map rendering engines, they have the label data is just data, right? And they render it in the map, sometimes even in like 3D, to where like, if you pan the map, the labels kind of gracefully stay in the same spot. Like, that is the experience I want for LegendKeeper. Like, people having to like hard code, go into Photoshop or WonderDraft and like type a raster label, like that's like, that works, right? But that's so old school, and like it's not flexible. You end up having to like recreate images just to get, to track change.
And you already have that data. You have the pins and the title of the pin, and so like you have that, right? I mean, that's exciting to me. Like that's cool, because at least now I don't have to make a whole new asset, right? Can just reuse or I don't know how you have to do it, but like it just seems like cool. I'm already giving you some of that knowledge. Like that's encouraging.
Oh, I'm seeing my I have
I don't know what's going on here, but you're in witness protection program.
Just gobble your voice.
Johnny Silverhand / Keanu Reeves is in my mind, telling me blow up corporate towers. Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
Not really
blow it all up. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
that's wild.
A more rudimentary kind of user experience kind of setup, like how I would use it as someone without knowledge of more complex systems, is just being able to layer different transparent layers on top of each other. You could get a lot of mileage out of that. So if you had a city, you could just have your landmass be your background, and then you can have transparent layers that are the roads, the highways, the buildings, all those different layers, and you could toggle them on and off and get that feeling of, right, the players know what the coastline in this area looks like, and they know what the roads look like. But now I'm going to pop the transparent layer of subway on it, and then also the power grid, and they'll see where all these different things converge,
Right.
and they get that moment of, oh, that's where we need to go.
Yeah. Or
That
to go into like the fantasy world, it's like, oh, well, they know where this dungeon goes. They know where that dungeon goes, and this faction's built their catacombs. They only know one at a time. And then when they get them all together, they see it's all one giant map, and it was all made by some, whatever thing, like the big reveal, like because they get to piece these pieces together. Like that's really good.
Yeah, Anto, I think that's a great point of like, and this is from the perspective of a software developer where I see a workflow and I'm like, oh, this could be so much better only if XYZ. But like the truth is, just raster image layers is easy, right? And it like people can make it work, right? It's not this like dream ideal that we might have in our heads, but having something real that works is better than some elegant thing that doesn't exist yet, right?
Yeah, sure. I'm thinking of the Cyberpunk Night City map that I've been working on, and just being able to in the software I've been using to make it, I have separate layers for the highway and the main roads and the side roads, but being able to put that information into LegendKeeper and toggle those off without having to open up my design software to do it in there. So good. Yeah. So useful.
Yeah.
Well, and coming back to sort of like some of even the geography and talking about layers, right? So geography in a lot of, completely informs climate, right? So being able to have layers of like, what is this area like in spring, summer, winter, fall, or I have a fifth season because, I've created something that I wanted to create. Yeah. But like, it's like, what does this look like? Does it get, what's the snowfall? What does it look like with snow? What does it look like in the summer? And using both the logic of prevailing winds, altitude, all that kind of stuff, you can really sort of start to have a lot of fun with, and you can create realistic settings, or you can go completely fantastical, because you do have different, you will get some people who are like, oh, I can't possibly rain like that because, it's blah, blah, blah. And that's important to them, and then you get some people who are like, I don't care. It's all one biome, whatever. Yeah. So,
or they're absurdist. Like, no. In my world, rain falls up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you got to fly to catch it, or whatever, it's like whatever the thing is, there's going to be some game out there where it's like, no, you guys don't understand. My entire game is we're all toys and we're on like one kid's bedroom, and I just got to build that whole world out. And it's like really important where the electrical socket is, or whatever the thing. Yeah. But yeah, like the weather in that space that's something that I never really like have a good grasp on. I did find oh, go ahead.
That makes me, I really imagine the future of LegendKeeper in like the form of plugins, right? Because like, I think one person, if you say like, oh, you can add your own climate biomes and height maps, and they would just be like, oh, I just want to write, leave me alone, right? But then other people might be like, hell yeah, I want to tell it where the mountains are, and then run a liquid simulation to determine the erosion and how that would affect, And we've talked about this a little bit when in our simulation cast, right? But like I'm imagining a world where maybe all of this comes in the form of layers for the Atlas, right? Like if you don't care about the climate layer, right? Don't add that plugin from community. Don't add the climate layer to your map. But if you do, it's like just sitting there waiting for you to, play with or whatever, which is what that always excites me. And so I really want to lay the groundwork for something like that, because that's, I think, a really exciting thing.
That would be really cool. That'd be really cool to be able to have like widgets from other people that I could say, yeah, I'm really interested in, like, I've got my raw form, and now I want to simulate like 50,000 years of geological activity, just to see what would happen after the gods made my planet. What would happen with given like natural processes, right? And if somebody's out there made some kind of widget and I can like run my thing through that, like that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'm really interested in, like, right now there are a lot of good, like, for example, Wonderdraft is one of them. There's a lot of good like rasterized map creation tools that are like Photoshop for RPG and world building maps, right?
Right.
But I would love to see that, right, where you kind of establish you paint the initial state of your world, right, and then run, like you said, like run erosion, make it rain on your world for 1,000 years, and how does that impact the geography?
That is something that I do in Wonderdraft, because Wonderdraft does have kind of a sea level gauge on it. So when you create your world, you can change the slider for the sea level. So sometimes it's fun to make your world and define your coastlines, and then just go, well, what happens if I raise the sea level a little bit? How does it change the world? Or if I lower it? That's really cool.
That's neat.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and just that alone is already like giving you some options for like pre and post cataclysm type stories and all that kind of stuff. Is like just having a sea level gauge on your thing is already good. Yeah.
There was a blog post I was reading. There was a blog post I was reading. I think it was by Red Blob Games. But it's this person who creates. I'm sure they have a game portfolio, but I've only ever read their articles. They have all these articles about simulation when it comes to video games. And one of the articles I really like is they create this pretty much exactly what we're talking about, where you kind of have an initial generation, and then you say, okay, what if water was flowing from all the mountaintops? Okay, it erodes away everything and creates rivers and runs all to the coast. And it's like, okay, research tells us that, civilizations tend to form in places where the climate is like this, and the amount of fresh water is like this, and the amount of salt water is like this. Pick the optimal spots on the map that civilization would form. I forget the name of the article, but it's like an in-browser simulation. So you can actually run it like while you're reading the article, and it's really cool.
That's cool. So
let me see if I can find the link to that.
So while you're hunting for that, I did find this amazing GIF a long time ago about how the Mississippi Delta made Louisiana through soil deposits. So like almost like reverse erosion. It pulls all the final result of erosion is what I should say. Here, let me see if I can pull this up. And can I make this big for everybody? So the river comes down and deposits soil from the mountains up higher in the Mississippi. And it's this like fascinating look at how land masses can grow from rivers, not be eaten away by a river. And how like then the seacoast comes along and takes away some of that shoreline, and more river comes along and, produces more and that kind of thing. And so, this thing is like hyper detailed and just blew my mind when I was like, oh, I had no idea that rivers made land. I really didn't. I just thought rivers took it away, and they just like kept cutting further into the continent. It's like, no, they apparently can do the opposite. It's like, oh, just mind blowing,
It's interesting because a lot of the kind of procedural kind of software based things that we're talking about are things that I have dabbled with from a purely manual kind of viewpoint, where I've loaded up a map and I've gone in and defined a height map myself and then adjusted things based on that. If you go onto my LegendKeeper project,
sure.
I think I've got the map loaded in there. If you click over onto
is it Ash?
That's the one.
Because
then
you've got a
depending
couple
on where we
now,
are.
which is great.
Yeah, if you drag down to the bottom right, you'll see a pin for the world map. It's
Hey, look
that
at
one.
you.
And then we go out to the world map, and then that leftmost black flag,
This one?
that's the one. So this map, if you click on it, you'll get a more detailed version. We go fancier.
Oh, look
There
at
we
you,
go.
fancier.
So this one, I built kind of following as close as you can reasonably get to the natural progression of things. I defined my plate tectonics. I went in, built a coastline, and then built a height map out, and then used the height map to determine where my rivers were. So once I had kind of my gradation from mountain to lowlands, I'd start a river in the mountain, and once it got to a lowland point, that would change its course, and that's how I determined the courses of the rivers. And then went in and put all the lakes and things depending on the height map and all that stuff, all manually. So being able to do that in any way more automated would be amazing.
Yeah, how much effort did constructing before you got into placing towns? How much effort did it take for you to get to tectonics, height map, and then water flow?
I think it was about 6 or 8 hours, somewhere in that region.
Awesome. Yeah, hours I
sitting
would never
down
spend.
and just
Good to know.
Yeah, just going through it.
That's amazing, dude. That's amazing. And like you've got some thick mountain ranges. Like,
oh yeah,
whoa, those are. And
like
then
the time of
foothills,
placing
stuff. Yeah.
each of those individual assets. That's where most of that 6 hours went.
I'll bet.
Yes, I've actually seen that process you're describing. Someone posted on Reddit once. It was like a Photoshop macro that like encapsulates that process into like 500 Photoshop steps. And it was like surprisingly effective.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where if I can find a link to that, I'll try to find it too.
Yeah, that's incredible.
There's no reason why software can't help us do that kind of stuff, right? That's algorithmically speaking, we're talking about solved problems, right? What's really missing is the user experience and the tools and being easy to use.
And then the awareness, right? Like the tool exists, sure, but then people need to be aware of it, and then
how to use it and things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because I imagine that once I got to the point where
oh no, Discord is having a tough day.
Oh.
It is having a tough day because we've just lost Anto. We're gonna lose everyone once.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But yeah.
So, well, he put in a lot of work. So and there's tools to make that work easier, but it has to be user friendly. So
yeah, of course. And like it makes sense. Like I'm just gonna pick on his thing here. Like the big on his map, I'm not seeing a whole lot of protected ports. But then right here, he's got one protected port. And like, boop, that's where your capital city goes. Because that's your calmest water port. Except for maybe this one over here. But definitely this one over here with the Emperor's capital. That's the best port on his map. And so like that tracks. That logically makes a lot of sense.
So kind of somewhat tangential, but related, right? Yep. While we're waiting for Anto to return to us here in the data space, I look at you guys, expending all this effort, right, and creating these amazing creations.
Ooh, this is what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think like,
hello,
hey,
welcome back.
My internet has completely died.
No,
so thrown on my mobile data and logged in on my phone.
Well, welcome
back
from the abyss, man. Wow,
from the bad times.
Yeah. Sorry, so Braden, you were in the middle of talking about these solved problems.
Oh yeah, and I see you guys and everyone using LegendKeeper specifically, right? Like pouring their heart and soul into all this data into the platform. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of redoing the architecture layer, because that's a lot of work, and that's a lot of data, and that's a lot of personal investment and creativity to put into like an online only platform, right? Where, you know, God forbid, like anything happened to LegendKeeper or me, but like reality is cruel, right? And so one of the things that I really have become passionate about, especially like recently, is like user autonomy and like true data ownership, which is why offline support has become so important to me. Of like,
Wow.
you know, if you know, just casually speaking, if your internet's down, or if the LegendKeeper servers are down, like there's no excuse for you not being able to get to your data, right, and get to all this work you've put in. So I don't know. That's one of the things. Yeah, exactly. God forbid anything happens to your internet connection.
Dude, that's really like way to own a philosophy, and then really make your project um be in line with that, right? Like that's cool, because
Yeah,
I think in the world of big data, like there are no creators doing that. Right?
Yeah, I think it's very rare, and I'm really hoping that like we are moving towards, you know, a future of, you know, what's called local first software, which the new LegendKeeper 0.8.1 is going to be local first, which is your client has everything. It has all the data, and when you change stuff, it just says, "Hey, LegendKeeper server, I changed some things. If you want to pass this along to other people looking at this project, be my guest."
That's cool.
And so that's how you kind of get that offline support and the online. Like it's very cool technology, and not a lot of platforms are using it. And so I'm really excited to do that with LegendKeeper, because I think that is critical for a creative tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've heard that phrase, actually, Braden. So that's a really interesting concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of putting the control of your data back into your hands, where now don't get me wrong, this stuff is a lot harder to build. That's why, like, you know, it's easier to just keep it all on one big computer in the cloud. When you distribute it across a bunch of computers, you get into some crazy problems. But like the technology to solve those problems has gotten to a point where it's like, I think this is the future. This is like, you know, you deserve to own your data and, you know, do as you please with it. You made it after all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
Cool.
that's my Cyberpunk rant. Don't let corpos hoard all of your data in a data fortress.
Yes. No, absolutely.
Well,
Good.
Yeah, well, I definitely, like, you know, I appreciate your focus on that, Braden and LegendKeeper. But even still, because, you know, I put so many hours into it, I download and back up the JSON from
that is great to hear. I really like hearing that people use that, because I think it's really important. Not because, you know, LegendKeeper is going to really realistically lose any of your data. We back up data like constantly. Like we're doing once or twice a day, consistently at this point. But like, just for you, right? Just for your personal sovereignty over your data, having all of that, having that JSON data, right, also gives you the ability to use other tools with your LegendKeeper data, like the Foundry import plugin, which people use to just take a whole LegendKeeper project and just shove it into Foundry, which is amazing.
Yes, which I have done, and it was beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, that library is fantastic. I'm really glad that was made.
Yeah. The Foundry thing is making the rounds in the Cyberpunk scene as well, because there's a really good Foundry developer, I would say, and a lot of the Cyberpunk actual play crews are moving over to Foundry. There are a lot of them already on LegendKeeper, and so they're migrating their LegendKeeper stuff into Foundry, and like it's just part of the expectation now at this point. So it's really awesome that you did that, because there's a lot of people making use of it for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to be good to everybody's time, so we try to do this stuff for about an hour. We're just a little over an hour now. Braden, were there any other like big topics you wanted to jump into for our time together. I don't want to like abuse anybody's time.
Not that I can think of. Yeah, I feel like we covered a good deal of things.
Yeah, this is really fascinating, and we're gonna definitely grab the links here. The Blobs in Games article that you linked to me, Map Generation on a Sphere Part 2, and Map Gen 4 from Red Blob Games or Red Blob Games. We're gonna grab all
unfortunately,
these.
none of these are the articles I was thinking of, but like this guy just like outputs hundreds of really cool articles. So if you just go into his blog, if you are interested in like game development and simulation,
Yeah,
it's a very cool blog to read through. It gets pretty technical at times, but I think some of them also hit kind of at a more abstract level too.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna grab this stuff, and folks, it's gonna be in the show notes on the YouTube video and that sort of thing. It's in the chat now, so thanks for linking that stuff, Braden. And yeah, this has been really informative to me because I was a little intimidated by this topic. I'll be frank, because I do small ball stuff like the city. I don't outside of the neighborhood or city we're playing in. I don't. So this was really informative to me, and I learned a lot. So thanks for you guys bringing in the good stuff for us to look at. Let's go around the horn real quick. Patrick, can you tell us a little bit about what you're up to and your projects and all the cool stuff? I'll bring up one of your projects while you're talking.
Yeah, no. So my brother and I, Two Brothers Gaming, we've been hard at work on our game that we've been building, Shards of a Shattered Moon, which I have been populating lots of pins in LegendKeeper for, and also writing basically the rule set. So we are alpha version 0.2 as of today. And so I expect to start getting a beta version out to some play testers in January. And I'm looking at 3 folks here who at least will get a copy of it. I'm not going to obligate them to play it, but definitely.
Yeah, it's just seeing your teasers for your Magic system.
Definitely a copy of it. So,
and all that stuff, like, it looks so good. I can't wait to get my hot little hands on it. So, yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So, awesome. Thank you. Well, yeah. So it's a free form Magic system. It has powers, but it has no spells. So it kind of is very much a player derived. Oh, I want to do X power and see what I can do with it. Kind of leave it up to them and how they act it out. So, but yeah, very excited about it. So, and that's really been what I've been working on. That and playing Cyberpunk 2077 and reading the Cyberpunk Red rulebook. So
yes, yeah, it's all over. Yeah, Anto, tell us a little bit about the stuff you're working on. I know because I'm like following both y'all's stuff so closely, but tell the good folks at home what you're up to.
So, all over the internet, there's Icarus Games posting all kinds of helpful advice for people wanting to run games of D&D and other RPGs. And my big push for kind of the new year is expanding the range of systems that I'm talking about. At the moment, I talk almost exclusively about D&D, but that's going to be changing in the new year. I have got a whole bunch of Cyberpunk stuff ready to go after spending months in these live streams listening to y'all talk about Cyberpunk. Like, finally wore me down, and now everything in my life is Cyberpunk. So I hope you're happy.
Yes, I am very.
We are.
D&D was the third RPG I found. I was in all these other ones first. And so like when I came to D&D, I was like, wait, this is fun? 1,000 spells is fun? And now I love it, right? Like I got into it, but at first I was like, really?
Yeah. I'm really excited to dive deep into Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
I want to make videos on it, and I want to do all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you get up to, man. It's going to be really good to see your content there. And oh, here's your explosion. You'd mentioned it a few times, but I had not ever actually like gone looking for it. I see it.
Yeah, that all used to be just regular old country until the players got their mitts on it.
Guys,
as players are wont to do.
Yeah. Player agency. I tell them
they can do anything. What do? They blow up the country.
That's right. And I'll do mine, and then Braden, please close us out. But High Shelf Gaming, we are a community of gamers. We play role-playing games online. I do a little YouTube channel about Cyberpunk. So I've got some Cyberpunk how to GM videos going up. And we are about to do our 40th episode of Cyberpunk, the second chapter, tomorrow. And that's going to kick off our 12 days of actual plays big charity event. So please, everybody, if you can, tune in, donate to the Trevor Project through our Tiltify link. We're trying to raise $12,000 in 12 actual plays. And I just really, really, really want to make that a big special event. It's the biggest event we've ever run. It's the biggest event I'm aware of of its type, just in terms of logistics and everything like that. Like, we're super psyched. We have tons of stuff to give away, copies of Cyberpunk and a bunch of games from Onyx Press and Modifius and all that kind of stuff. So we've got all kinds of cool stuff that we're going to be giving away. And Anto, you're pitching in as well. So thank you for providing a packet of things for us to give away. And Braden,
quite welcome.
You are also giving away LegendKeeper as part of this drive. So thank you so much, Braden, for that contribution as well.
For sure.
Yeah. So Braden, take us out. Tell us about LegendKeeper and all the cool things you're doing.
For sure. So yeah, first off, I just want to say thanks to everyone supporting LegendKeeper on Patreon, and not just currently supporting, but supporting in the past as well, right? Like, without you guys, I wouldn't be able to, give LegendKeeper the love and attention that I have been able to, and so I'm really excited that that this is my full-time job. I appreciate everyone's patience as LegendKeeper development. It's has been slow in the regards of like polishing the core feature set, right? But I really want to get that core creative experience like spotless. And so this kind of next transformation, this essentially the creation of the desktop version of LegendKeeper, this offline data sovereign version is that kind of dream. And once I'm done with that, which I'm pretty close, I'll be moving on to back into just straight up feature development, which I'm very excited about, kind of expanding these core functionalities. But yeah, thanks to everyone who's been using LegendKeeper to build out their creative projects. Everyone's feedback and use of it has been so helpful and really inspiring to me. So yeah, LegendKeeper is a platform for building fantasy worlds, for RPGs and novels and whatever the hell you want to build. So just a big thank you to everyone.
Yeah, man, it's been great. It's been really cool to see this whole project, this whole rise. So everybody at home, thanks a ton for watching. I like to raid people. And there's this fantastic guy for us to visit tonight. His name is Cave Geek Art. He hand makes maps, but with like leather and stuff. Tonight, though, I think he is summoning a demon scroll, or making a summoning scroll for a demon. He has this creation. Looks like he's using some Photoshop tonight, or maybe that's InDesign. I'm actually not sure what the tool is. Some sort of Adobe product. He is making this thing tonight. This guy's a hoot to watch. He has nice music, and he's always making some kind of map or some kind of world. So we're going to go and pay him a little visit. If you've never raided in Twitch before, it's fun. Go in, say hi, drop an emoji in chat if you've got one, and just be friendly and all that good stuff. I'm going to send you guys over there in a couple of seconds. Everybody at home, thanks a ton for watching us. As always, have fun and play well.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
All right, we are out, my friends.